So before we begin, I want to highlight a few accessibility features. Voice interpretation is in English and Spanish. So you can find it just below this section here in your screens. So I recommend you that if you speak in English, use the English channel, or if you speak Spanish, the Spanish channel. So we'll be able to record this session, this event in two languages. We will request panelists to speak slowly to facilitate simultaneous interpretation that will be happening. For voice interpretation, you can select the language as mentioned. Once you click on a globe, then you will be able to select the language that you prefer. The card live captioning is available in English, and you can click on CC button in the lower bar of your Zoom window to activate them for yourself. If you have any questions with regards to accessibility, please use the Q&A question to communicate with the moderator or myself or any person that has the ILGA name on it or tech support. And before we start, I just want to clarify some house rules for this webinar. We are committed to the fullest possible participation of everyone, and we want to make sure that no one is put off by the actions, language, and attitudes of others. The use of correct and inclusive language is absolute paramount here in today's space. There is zero tolerance policy on abusive or disruptive behavior. We want to make sure that you are enjoying this session in a way that feels safe for all of you. We are not live streaming this session on social media platforms, but we are recording this event, and the video will be published on ILGA World YouTube channel, website, and social media over the next few days. This means that the recording will be available also for the general public and potentially also to viewers in your home country. So please take into account in case you have publicity concerns or you are planning to share information about yourself or your work during this session. All attendees have joined with the video turned off by default, and participant chat will also be turned off during this session. If you wish to ask a question to the panelists, however, please use the question and answer, the Q&A, somewhere around here, button in the bottom panel of your Zoom screen. There will be a Q&A session towards the end of this event, and please note that your questions will be moderated by the host. Without further hesitation, let's begin. And I also want to introduce the awareness team, which is the Awareness Eastern Group, a Vienna-based collective composed in its core by trans, intersex, queer, and female people. The awareness people focuses on the well-being of persons affected by discriminatory, abusive, or transgressive behavior. This is accompanied with standing in solidarity on side of affected persons, if the affected person wants it, in order not to leave the affected person alone with the consequences of discrimination and violence. The approach they use is intersectional, and they take into account the possibility of multiple forms of a person being affected. So AWA, you will find some of us in the panel section. So it's the awareness team. They will be able to help you in case something is triggering or something has created, has made you upset emotionally. So you contact the awareness through to the chatting, and we're going to be reminding them the ways to contact them. There is a special Zoom channel you can access, or if there is also a phone call you can make, or WhatsApp, or even email. So there is multiple ways of connecting with them. And without further ado, I just want to introduce the awareness team.
Hello, my name is Willi. My pronouns are they, them, or none. I'm part of our Stern Collective, and we are here for you during this event. So in case there is any situation where you feel overwhelmed or triggered, feel free to contact us. We will share several possibilities through the chat after we said hi. And please, feel free that in case there is anything you need, we will share the ways how you can reach us via email, Telegram, Signal, and WhatsApp. And so we are here for you, and we are on your side in case there is anything you need. And I pass on to my colleagues so that you quickly saw our faces, and then we will be reachable through the channels that we share.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Anja. My pronouns are she, her. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to also hear part of the sessions and yeah, to support if support is needed.
My name is Verena, my pronouns are they, them. Happy to meet you all, and I wish us all a good session here.
Hi, I'm Leonie, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm also looking forward to this event today. Thanks for facilitating and being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. So as I said, if you want to be in contact with any of them, you can just send a message through the chat directed to any of them, or you can check in the chat. They will be sending the ways you can use to contact them in case you need help or in case you need emotional or assistance. And yeah, now I also have shared in the chat the program in case you want to verify. The program is both in Spanish and English, so you can check in and then you can check which are the sessions that you're interested in. We're going to have a break after we have the second panel. We have a change in our schedule. We're going to have Victor, which is the UN independent expert, coming before the panel. For, you know, Victor is very busy, so we're going to try to have him around before the second panel, and that's the only time in the schedule that we have. All right, now that we begin, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Erin Rovaskin, and I'm the Intersex Program Officer at ILGA World. I'm a scientist, and I work in areas of harm reduction, health policy as a pharmacist, and currently I work at ILGA as a program officer, very specifically on intersex issues. I was born in Colombia, a land that I love with all my heart, but a land that is not anymore a place I can call home. Now I'm speaking at the start of the event, and this provides an opportunity to do some sense setting. First, I want to acknowledge the custodians of this land, Ateoroa, the Natoi Fatwa people. It's a land that has offered me kindness and love. I was welcomed to this land, and with time passing, I can only thank to this land for welcoming me and letting me be free and enjoy with freedom my corporality and my diversity. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in a pandemic, and that is unprecedented in our lifetimes. In different ways, we all been impacted. Many of us have lost someone. Our health might be also impacted, and maybe we have some problems in workplace. We might lose our jobs. Our ability to travel has been affected. And maybe the only positive thing is that we have online events such as this one. I'm glad to be back here virtually, giving some opening remarks in an event that will be addressing very important issues that require further visibility in our movement. I want to thank all the people who's joining us, the awareness team, the independent expert on sexual orientation and gender identity, Victor Madrigal Borlos, to multiple intersex civil society organizations joining this event, both intersex-led or LGBTQI+-led, that are going to provide some knowledge about issues that we are hoping can become more visible and centered on an intersex-only narrative. As intersex people, we're aiming to make our voice visible in a context where we have for so long been silenced. And our visibility is not just about wearing yellow and purple colors or waving an intersex flag. We speak about the continuous silencing of our voices in medical spaces, where we've been trying to address the many gross violations, particularly against intersex infants and children, in addition to ignorance and misconceptions about our corporal realities and our experiences beyond the boundaries and binaries that we are constantly and forcibly forced to fit in. Traditionally, we have been given the space where we call out the international community to do more in relation to our bodily integrity and our bodily autonomy, and for the dignity and respect for the diversity of human populations, in particular people born with diverse bodies, something that comes as a respect for the principle of self-determination, how we say here in Aotearoa, tino rangatira tanga, where this coexists with respect for the self-determination to others. On this Intersex Day of Remembrance or Day of Solidarity, however you want to call it, we want to open a space for allies and together commemorate the lives of those who are not longer with us and the ones that currently are experiencing persecution or live in environments of fear, hate, secrecy, shame for being intersex. The day is internationally observed by the civil society and is designed to highlight issues faced by intersex people. And it marks the birthday of Herculine Barbin, a French intersex person whose memoirs were later published by philosopher Michel Foucault, along with contemporary texts and later further misrepresentations in fictionalized accounts about her experiences as a queer intersex person. While Intersex Awareness Day focuses on the creation of awareness and visibility of intersex people in society, Intersex Day of Solidarity calls on society and individuals to support intersex people and work together to grant them rights, focusing on issues facing this population and the need for political reflection and action. Intersex adults and children face many of the intersecting issues that affect LGBT. However, more specifically, the intersex community centers its advocacy in very important issues. Unconsented genital mutilations suffer as a result of damaging medicalization of our naturally occurring intersex variation, our beautiful intersex bodies. In a day like today, we celebrate our existence, we celebrate our past, our present, and we foresee the future and discuss solutions that can elevate the intersex community of our countries, regions. For intersex allies, please remember to listen to intersex people, to intersex-led organizations. Amplify the work they do, and don't leave intersex people out of your activism. But the biggest issue, as I mentioned before, is the pathologization of our bodies and the unconsented, atrocious violations that are disguised as therapies or surgeries, mutilations that many of us are subjected from birth and so on, and the desecration of our bodily integrity. But damaging medicalization is not the only issue faced by intersex people. Intersex people face many other civil and human rights issues regarding self-determination, gender recognition, active and equal participation in society, access to affirmative healthcare services, education, service access, employment opportunities, and many areas such as sports. Similar root causes lead to the discrimination of people under the LGBT umbrella. And these are maybe some of the reasons that drive doctors to normalize our bodies and our sex characteristics. But that's just not the beginning of the story. Intersex people experience infanticide in many parts of the world. Segregation, abandonment, persecution, conversion therapy, and the list can go on. In many places of the world, intersex people are persecuted, hated, experience violence, and endure immense suffering through their lives. A recent survey made in 2019 in Europe indicated that out of all the LGBTQI+ in the alphabet, go on, people who identify as intersex people face the higher rate of discrimination. 1 in every 4 intersex persons experienced sexual or physical violence, and that is if we take into account the experiences that could count, if we don't count the medicalized rape. In this event, we're hoping to commemorate our present and our emerging future. We speak about the legacy and the work of many of us that are not present today. We also hope that we can speak about other intersecting elements that impact the life of intersex people that lead to discrimination, exclusion, and violence, and other elements that of the human identity that intensifies these issues, such as racism, xenophobia, ableism, and discriminations based on ethnic or religious background. Today, we learn about the stories of survival, resilience, and joy. While we listen to our speakers, we also want to commemorate and celebrate our existence. We wanted to bring joy with music and prayers, gospel singing, and by remembering those that are not here, those whose battles for justice build a better world for us today, those pillars that are the very foundation of our movement, those that pave our way, intersex people like Herculine Barbin, a person that we learn thanks to her memoirs, a person that illustrates hate, fear, and stigma in the 19th century France, a person subjected to state-sponsored persecution that can simply exemplify hate, the fear and shame that many of us have to live in our daily lives, but also the resilience in times of adversity. At the time in a day where we honor our past and present, and the important contribution of activists like Sally Gross, Max Beck, Georgina Somerset, and many more, including allies. And activists that pave our way to this day that help us to make a world a better world for intersex people. Okay, now I just want to introduce one of our guest speakers, which is Darlan Rookie. And as we know, faith plays an important role for many of us. Sometimes we assume that faith is not compatible with human rights, especially in situations where faith is used as an instrument for hate and discrimination. But no, faith, as I said, is an instrument and can be used to help assist others and share our love. And Apostle Darlan is a living testimony of that. Without further ado, I want to introduce you and welcome Apostle Darlan Rookie.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, I'm very much grateful. Thank you, my dear. I am Darlan Rookie. I'm an intersex. Thank you for welcome.
Thank you, my dear. So you can introduce us with a wonderful prayers that can help us to elevate this wonderful day.
Hello, everyone. I am Darlan Rookie, an intersex from Kenya. I was born out of wedlock. My father is Malan Zambi of Tanzania. I was born and brought up in the home of the Swagonyalwal of Karungu in Kenya. I am an apostle and the founder of the Bride of the Lamb Ministries International. I am also the founder of the Bride, Orphans and Widows Society, which is a philanthropic organization advocating for the rights of intersex and the vulnerable in the society. I am a songwriter and a singer. I am also an entrepreneur in various businesses, entities. I think ILGA and all the stakeholders for organizing. I thank all the ILGA and all stakeholders of for this organization that they have done internationally. It is a forum for intersex solidarity. Thank you and welcome for this. I would wish we pray together. Almighty Father, the God of heaven and earth, with all humility, we come before you on this special day dedicated for the solidarity with intersex persons. The intersex persons are your creation, and therefore they are not a mistake because you never make mistakes. The intersex are human beings who are prone to err, more so because of their conditions. Dear God, I plead with you to forgive the sins of all the intersex persons globally. Some of them have been forced to commit sin because of the mistreatments, the persecutions, hostility, and the rejections they have forced from the society. In your gracious name, be merciful and blot away their transgressions. Let your power cleanse them from all iniquities so that they may be acceptable before you. I also pray that you may give the intersex persons the heart of forgiveness so that they may forgive those who have oppressed, misled, molested them, mistreated, rejected, and caused both bodily and psychological harm to them. Console them, dear Father, because your consolation is beyond the human race, gender, and ability. Holy Father, I plead with you to be a provider to the needs of the intersex persons. Some of them have lost hope in life and are living in these deplorable conditions without anyone to support them. You are the Father of all, and the intersex also belongs to you. Most of the intersex persons have been denied opportunities and they languish in poverty. God, we are before you to send these supplications. Discrimination has denied them a venue of their survival in this world. In your marvelous name, provide all the needs of the intersex people. Open their ways which have been blocked by their oppressors. Father, give them what their own strength and knowledge cannot give them. Give them what their families cannot give them. Give them what the world has denied them because of their conditions. Give them what their compromised faith and doctrines of religious has deprived them of. I plead with you to shine your face upon the intersex today and show them your marvelous name. O God of heaven, you never look down upon your creation. The intersex persons are vulnerable in your presence because they are your special creation. You know the pain and sorrow of the intersex. Stand with them in your victorious name to make them triumphant over their enemies. Rebuke and revert any ill motives igniting against the intersex. Many have been physically abused, misused, inflicted with pain, while others have been killed without reason. Restore the joy of the intersex who have been subjected to physically and emotionally torture. Many nations have wicked laws which intimidate and oppress the intersex. Father, stand with the intersex to give them their freedom and rights. You are the gracious God who has never been defeated. I commit all the intersex into your hands. Protect all the intersex children who cannot save themselves from the hands of their enemies and evil customs and traditions advocating for their death. Protect all the intersex youth who are being denied their youthful joy because they cannot fit into the he and she cluster of the society. Protect all the intersex who can not get into marriage for fear of being victimized and wrongly placed in the society. Protect all the intersex who are in marriage and are being held hostage by their spouses for fear of being exposed. Protect all the old intersex whom you have covered in your favor to see old age. because seeing old age for an intersex is a miracle. Father, we thank you for this because you are our God. As we stand in solidarity with my fellow intersex today, I pray for the souls of the intersex who are denied a chance to live and fulfill their dreams. As they sleep in hope of waking up in a heavenly body, a body that will not remind them of the pains of being an intersex. Father, give them eternal peace. I also pray for all the activists and organizations who have stood for the rights and freedom of the intersex people in the community. Give them more resources, power to continue advocating for acceptance of the intersex in the modern world. Father, this is my humble prayer. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, I pray and believe. Amen. Thank you very much. I now hand over back to the moderator. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, my darling. I appreciate your prayers, and I'm aware that we have multiple faiths, multiple religions, but I think this message is universal. It touches our heart. It touches all of us, even if we don't have a particular religion or we believe in something. We all want peace, and we want all to live in a world that accepts us for who we are and for the way that we've been. We were born this way naturally, and this is just a normal and natural variation. And thank you so much for your wonderful prayers, and I appreciate that. Okay, now I just want to introduce Manny. So I think I leave it up to you, but I want to introduce one of our elders of our movement who's going to speak about the importance of standing together, honoring our past, and more especially of our elders, those that pave our way, those that are actually the reason why this movement is where it is today. So I hand it on to you, Manny. I think you are mute. No, just stay mute. The video was fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but not see you.
So whatever's going on here, it's not working.
I think you just need to click the video once, not twice. Perfect.
Okay, the problem is I can't see, so let's get started. Thank you, Ileana. Ngā mihi aroha whānau. Warmest greetings and loving to all on this important day of remembering and reflection. A day that marks the birthday, as Ileana has said, of Herculin Barbin, born in 1838, a French intersex person whose story was made famous by the philosopher Michel Foucault. I hold the fact that this birthday is marked without their consent. They did leave their diaries, a treasure that we acknowledge tonight, a story from the past. So today, let us remember all who have gone before us, all the intersex ancestors back across the centuries. Their pain, their struggle in cultures where their reality was not understood or respected, and those who lived in cultures that understood, valued, and respected diverse realities, able to find joy and purpose, meaning in a world that still to this day mostly fails to be gentle, respectful, empowering of intersex exceptionalism. Thank you, Ileana, for creating this event. Thank you, ILGA World, for hosting this event, and for all who are taking part wherever you are in the world. Let's stretch back into the mist of time and honor all who have gone before us on every continent, in every ocean and sea, in all cultures, some known to us and many not. Tonight, as it is in Aotearoa, I want to acknowledge and remember those with variations of sex characteristics who have passed in our own lifetime. Each of you here tonight will have people you have known, inspired you, peers, colleagues, friends, maybe even lovers who are no longer with us. Tonight, let us remember them. Remember who they were, the memories, stories, the work, the gifts they have left with us. Let us now take a minute in silence to remember those people. Remember them. Remind ourselves they will not be forgotten. And I look forward to the day when we have a safe place where those who have passed can be both visibilized, remembered, and honored by all the community. Something for us to think about how that might come to be. Eliana, thank you for tasking me tonight with the elder's hat. I'm aware that tonight I stand in this place symbolically. So tonight I also honor those still living. We elders came to this world before the internet, before Google, before cell phones. In fact, many of us would have grown up in households as I did with no electricity. My dad in the early years worked the farm with horses, not a tractor. We have known world wars, the horror of nuclear bombs, the fact that humanity had just discovered a way to destroy itself. We have all known a world before the intersex community, before flags, before there were our own stories, when the only images were those of pathology. Most of us elders grew up pre-John Money, when the medical model was informed by the imperialistic Victorian model, a model that was prurient, male, cis, white, and privileging, when we were incorrectly called hermaphrodites. Many of us grew up thinking we were the only one. Those of us who are elders have lived through and experienced extraordinary change. We've also lived with the fact that change for our community has been elusive in its reality. The world we find ourselves in now is not the world of our childhoods. We now find ourselves dealing with age, changing bodies with no map. What should we be doing as aging intersex persons? What things should we be paying attention? Is it the same or different from our endosex counterparts? And in this age of COVID and the destruction it has wrought across the planet, I find myself bereft of peer company. It is some 2 years since I had the privilege of spending time with other intersex people the same age or perhaps older than myself. And while I appreciate modern communication systems, I feel a great sadness for the lack in my life of contact. It came late for me, as it would for most of my peers, and brought a genuine richness and vitality into my life. So as we get opportunities to gather again, can I suggest to those of you who are younger, check in on your elders, see how they're doing, and offer them the gift of human company and contact, which is a nice segue into the final thing I wanted to talk about tonight. We are living in a time of great extremes, wealth and poverty. We're also living in an incredibly fractured time, a dangerous one. As a community all over the planet, those who wish us ill seem to have grown stronger, bolder, more active in their collective desire to hurt, to harm. Their reductive thinking, pseudoscience has no place for diversity, for difference, for the beauty and character that I've come to know the intersex community for. A community that is not rainbow and is part rainbow, a community that is all and both and more, a community that still lives with shame, stigma, and fear, a community that for the most part is still invisible, and yet we, a small and slowly growing group of people, have found ways to work together, reach across, develop common narrative out of a shared place of complex trauma, and a desire, an urgent desire for change, so that future generations in whatever country, whatever culture, do not have to go through what each of us have. So we have forged coalitions. We come to the issue of standing together, not just as an intersex community, as hard and as complex as that is. We need, I believe, in this time-critical crisis that the planet Earth faces, we need to stand together with everyone who cares, who knows how dire the situation really is. Global warming, all forms of sustainability, the organized and very real threat of fascism, of white supremacy, of imperialism in all its forms that seeks to take power, subjugate, control, destroy, void human rights, any kind of justice, all forms of diversity. And how do we do that? We are, as a community, I believe, we need to be brave and creative. We need to reach out, to listen, to care, to own our own privilege if we have any, to seek in whatever we do to leave no one in any community behind. We must form collaborations. That means we will make mistakes. We need to learn how to say sorry. We need to relearn how to be together face to face, to go slow and be determined, to value our past and learn from it. For it is only in knowing our past can we truly move forward into the future that values everyone, that has a place for everyone, that actually cares and supports those with the least, that makes sure every voice is listened to, is respected, can be heard. We will need leaders with critical empathy that can speak to many, not just the voice of the few. We might need to practice stepping back, stepping forward. We need to, our community needs us, planet Earth needs us. It's a crisis and we need to act like we know it is. Thank you. Thank you for listening, for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Manny, for those wonderful and beautiful words. And thank you so much for that in-depth assessment of what all those things we need to keep in mind. Because as you said, intersex people of your generation did not have all the privilege that my generation has, which is the ability to connect, the ability to feel that there is someone just like us, and to connect and to be together, to stand together, particularly in these times of adversity. I just can imagine how difficult it was for you maybe, growing up and knowing that maybe there was no one just like you. So thank you so much, Manny, for remind us about the importance of remembering our elders, those who pave our way. So I appreciate your words, they're beautiful, and thank you so much, Manny. Now we're going to begin our first panel. So we have some issues with the connection. We have some issues with one of our guests. So we're going to have Alexander Birioskin and myself. We're just going to have a two panel. It was planned 3 persons, but that's fine. We still can go ahead. And so this panel, which is called Beyond Borders, Boundaries and Binaries, is going to explore the intersex experiences of migration and forcible displacement. So in situations of forced displacement, individuals who are intersex have the same rights and basic needs as many other people has. However, intersecting identities and multiple causes of persecution place intersex persons in extremely vulnerable situations. Intersex people experience forcible displacement, but in addition encounter distinct protection risk and needs because the real perceived other sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and more importantly, sex characteristics do not conform to prevailing sociocultural norms or expectations for our identities. With more than 80 million recognized refugees, it is fair to assume that several thousands, and probably just more than that, of refugees might have intersex traits. However, being a refugee comes with privileges, and often the less privileged parts of society are unable to flee and start a new life elsewhere. Oh, Tatenda is online, that's great. So now we're gonna have the opportunity of joining Tatenda and Alexander Beryoskin to this panel, which I call Beyond Borders, Boundaries, and Binaries. So I'm gonna just briefly introduce you to Tatenda and to Alexander. Okay, just give me a second. So Tatenda Shumira Nwaru, she's from Zimbabwe. She was born in Zimbabwe and she currently lives in the United States. She's an actress and a public speaker based in Boston. She's an intersex activist, an international human rights champion, immigrant, and a refugee who has promoted community awareness of intersex issues and advocated for the dignity, rights, and the well-being of underrepresented communities. While living in 3 different countries, she has worked and collaborated on essays for Shondaland Land by Shonda Rhimes, sorry for my English, the Huffington Post, Vogue, Video Out, and The Root, and has been featured on several national news programs and podcasts about her work. She's the subject of a short film called She's Not a Boy that was an official selection of the Boston LGBT Film Festival. I'm also welcoming Alexander Beryoskin from Russia, who lives currently in the United States. So they are an intersex queer 47XXY. He was born in Russia in 1984. They founded an association of Russian intersex organization, the first intersex organization in Russia. In 2013, as LGBTI activists, they faced with homophobic campaign organized against them in local mass media in 2014. Due to Russia gay propaganda law, they were fired from the university and they had to seek political asylum as an LGBTI activist in the United States. In New York City, they continued their intersex activism until 2018. Then they got an MS in nonprofit management in the New School. Currently, they live in San Francisco, California, where they are studying a PhD in the East-West Psychology program at the California Institute on Integral Studies. The research is LGBTQI refugees' lived experience in the context of the individualization. I'm so sorry. Also, they are published writer and consultant for collaborating with the UN program Free and Equal on LGBTQI issues. Welcome. Welcome, my people. Now that I have welcomed you both, I just want to begin. So just this is sort of a panel discussion. I was wondering if I can spotlight Alexander and Tatenda, my tech team. You can spotlight Alexander and Tatenda. Hello, I'm really, really sorry. I know it's super, super early for you. So my deep apologies. If it makes you feel better, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it's almost 1 a.m. So it's almost 24 hours difference between you and I. So we are very early in the morning. This happens soon, you know, but so, well, I just want to begin and I would like to ask you both, if you can share me something more about yourself and I can begin with either of you. Maybe Alexander, you can start just telling us more about you and maybe more about yourself and a little bit of your journey.
Well, thank you so much, Alain, that you invited us to talk today. Even I'm on the West Coast and right now it's close to 4 a.m., but I'm really glad to be here. What can I say about myself? Yes, I'm intersex queer, political immigrant. I don't know, I just enjoying to be with you in this very important day. And I really like it. Yeah, thank you so much. I just don't know what can I say else.
Now you, my dear Tatenda.
Hello, thank you for having me. And I share the same sentiments as Alex, to just the privilege of being able to speak here and be among everybody here. Yes, it's early in the morning. This is my morning fest. I can do better for sure. I apologize. I'm from Zimbabwe originally, and I moved to America in 2016, August of 2016. Seeking refuge because I had started an intersex movement in my country, and I had ran the nonprofit. It was the first of its kind at the time, because in Zimbabwe, this kind of work is not supported. And in fact, intersex people have been treated as a shame to the community or as a taboo. Or, there's so many disgusting beliefs that have been attached with intersex lives from my country. And I started True Identities. I named it True Identity because I felt like my identity was not being celebrated. And I knew I shouldn't be the only one who's feeling like that. And that prompted me to start the nonprofit and called it True Identities, because I felt like everybody else, every identity should be celebrated and acknowledged and not be put in the back burner just because some people don't know about it. So I took it as my initiative to educate the country, beginning with my own family, who were not very supportive at first. But you know, work like that comes with a lot of challenges because it's regarded illegal. So I received threats and everything you can think of against me and against my family. And it reached a point when I realized I was not safe anymore, talking about my truth and helping others talk about their truth too. I was actually putting all of our lives at risk, to be quite honest. That's why I moved to America. And I can't wait to dig deeper into what that means to move to this country as a refugee and as an immigrant, but on top of that, to be an intersex person, which is pretty much non-existent in people's vocabularies. So I'm really excited.
I'm glad to have you, and I think I might disclose this as well. I'm also a former refugee and living in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but I'm from Colombia, so I think there is something that we have in common, all of us three. We all three are both intersex and refugees or experience forcible migration. And this is an issue that has been not discussed very much as we're trying to unwrap what could be the reasons behind why we are actually seeking protection in other countries. And we're starting to understand legal language such as sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. We find out that often we have to camouflage our experiences within the SOGI sort of narrative because the SC side of it is not even understood properly internationally. So particularly myself, I needed to kind of like camouflage my way of getting protection as based on gender identity. And maybe, Alexander, if I'm not wrong, you mentioned that you needed to use the sexual orientation and political side of your activism. So I just wanted to ask how difficult it was for you to navigate this migration refugee system when trying to find protection and safety. So I will begin with you, Tatenda.
Thank you. I mean, that has been my struggle since day one, right? I think it was first, when you are a refugee, and let me not even start with mentioning that one. I mean, the sex, just being a human, coming to America is not easy as a refugee, as an immigrant, because the system is just built to sort of destroy you and not have you survive, because there are things like you cannot work in America for like the first 1 year because you have to apply for something that they call workers authorization, and you need to get Social Security. And the whole point, I think, what the system misses about being a refugee is when you come to this country, it's not like you have planned, like, oh, I want to go and live in America and save money so that you can take care of yourself. And you don't know anybody really. In my case, I didn't know anyone in this country. I started my life literally from the ground, like I had never worked for anything before. So this was new, it was like a rebirth, and I had to nurture myself and take care of myself and make sure that I'm surviving. So that just on its own was a huge struggle, and still a struggle, and sometimes, and I know so many people can relate. But also the money that is given to LGBTQ plus work to help things like that, intersex lives is overshadowed by everything else because we are not given enough platform and enough resources to talk about our challenges and to help so that the help can reach each and every one of us. There is very little resources and very little time, very little money that's given to our initiatives that it's very hard to even sometimes get a platform, which why I think we were both saying with my co-panelist Alex that we're very privileged to have this, because it's not every time that we get an opportunity to actually speak about our lives and be given time. And so that has been the challenge, and it is such a difficult system to get through. And I just don't know how else to explain that. And you mentioned when you read my bio that I have a documentary, and in the documentary, we interviewed people that were celebrating Pride, one in New York. And these are the people that I would have thought they probably know what intersex is, because we are all LGBTQI plus family. So we should obviously know about each other. And I realized almost everybody who was at Pride didn't even know what intersex was. And it's just made me realize how much work there is to be done, not only by me, but by all of us.
Now I hand it on to you, Alexander. How difficult was that journey for you to navigate the migration systems in trying to find a safer place for you to live?
Well, I'm very correlated with that end experience. I immigrated in 2014. It was forced immigration based on my LGBTQI experience and activism in Russia. When I came in the United States and I tried ask help in some queer organization, international organization which works with immigrants, they told me, you have problem as intersex or as a gay? As a gay, we can understand you. As an intersex, we don't know who the intersex people are, what kind of problems they have, with what they struggle. No, and we don't care. We don't have resources. And I tried to apply a different organization, and they told me, we don't care. When I apply for documents for asylum, political asylum, I waited my interview 3 years. In these 3 years, I cannot travel. It's always very difficult to apply for job. Everybody look at your resume and ask where you're from, who you are. We don't care. So it's a lot of insecure, and every time you don't know while you're waiting your immigration interview that maybe you can be deported. You cannot participate in any human rights movement protests because you can be arrested or have problems with police, and you have administrative or criminal record and can be deported. So it's very limited your experience as a human rights defender in the United States. Another problem, when I applied documents, I waited my interview 3 years, how I mentioned, and every time I need to explain my lawyers and my translator and the immigration officer who is intersex and what kind of problems intersex have in my country and other countries. Also, I had 2 interviews with immigration officer, and every time it was a very traumatic experience to talk about my sexual abuse trauma when I was a teenager, based on my intersex characteristics. And they asked me everything, how it's connected with my body, my experience, other stuff. And it again, I remember one interview was 5 hours. 5 hours, you just repeat again about your trauma experience and does it mean based on your life. And even after that, I waited another 2 years green card, and this time I cannot travel. I cannot apply for school, anything. It's really difficult to be immigrant in the United States. United States talk that they welcome to immigrants, but it's not true. And also, I understand that I have privileges. First of all, thanks to my hormone treatment, I look like more as a man. And I face it that a lot of people who non-binary, transgender people, intersex people, they have problems if they don't look very feminine or they don't look like very masculine. And also, I recognize another privilege. I'm white. It's very difficult to be a Black person in the United States, even now. And I really appreciate that Tatiana can talk about this and mention if she wants. So thank you so much that we can talk about this, because I try to find other intersex people and I found them, but sometimes they cannot understand what does it mean to be intersex refugee or immigrant in the United States. And there's a very good image. What does it mean to be a refugee or immigrant? It's the dark night of the soul. You start from nothing. You start from emptiness. You need to find, believe in yourself and strength, just start from nothing to your dreams. So thank you so much.
Thank you for just wonderful words, both of you. It touches here, it touches my heart, because it was a very difficult journey. I particularly had to be in a refugee camp, which is not even kind, because when you don't fit neatly in any of those paradigms for gender or bodies, you are subjected to even more violence, especially when you become a refugee among refugees, and sometimes a refugee among refugees, because even when they're trying to put you and classify you on an LGBT box, they don't understand that sometimes you are not part of that community, but those issues, intersecting elements, create complexities that have not been discussed much on the international arena. I think this is probably one of the first ever events in history where 3 intersex refugees are speaking out about their experiences. So we're making history in a way, but because today is the Intersex Day of Solidarity, we are also making a call. We're making a call for everybody that is doing intersex activism to remind themselves about the intersections that play an important role on others, because we are not just 3, there are many of us are invisible and we are suffering silently. So I think this is just important to remind us about that. And yeah, and then we are actually on schedule, which is fantastic. And the last question that I want to ask, it will be, how can we incorporate or raise awareness about our issues, which I consider invisible ones, and probably some people don't even think they're even an issue because they're so invisible. So how can we incorporate, and how can we make intersex issues more in line or incorporated in programs in relation to forcible displacement? What do you think would be a good way we can, make these issues more visible in a way? So I can begin with you, Alexander.
Thank you. Well, it's a very good question. I guess there may be 2 decisions. One, it's to change immigration policy. For example, when you apply for refugee or asylum or whatever, there's a special identity just to be intersex, not to be transgender, not to be gay, but intersex, and what it means and what kind of problems every person struggles in their country. That's the first. And the second, of course, more information about intersex people for different community health organizations, immigration organizations that work with asylums and refugees everywhere, because it's more information campaign. Yes, United States accept gender X in the passport, but it's a big step. Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, it needs more work with grassroots organizations who work in refugee camps in the border of Mexico and Texas and different states, and connect with these people. And of course, you mentioned very important moment. We don't know how many intersex immigrants exist in the United States and intersex refugees, because maybe most of them don't know about themselves too. Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, hopefully if we can collect data and we can detach ourselves from the LGBT acronym and just be classified, hopefully just by being intersex. Because I think it's enough ground for discrimination. We don't have to, be something else so we can be refugees, or recognized refugees. Now I hand it on to you, Tatenda.
Thank you. Obviously, I agree with everything that Alex said. And maybe just to add to that, I want to appeal, to everybody that so that we know that not every intersex story is the same. I think we are treated as a statistic, and we shouldn't allow these big organizations to tell us who should speak up for intersex issues all the time, because you would realize they ask the same two people and they are always representing us, which is, I'm glad that they are having a voice and their voice is being elevated, but I think everybody's voice should be elevated because our lives and stories and backgrounds and our race and our cultures is different. And every race and every culture and every social background and everything should be acknowledged and elevated. And we don't have a lot of that within our own intersex community. So I think it's one thing, when we ask for kindness from the outsiders, we have to start by showing kindness to each other within our circles, because how do we ask of something from people that are outside when we're not even doing it ourselves? And I just think that the immigration, we can appeal for the immigration policy to honestly be reformed. We can collaborate and write an appeal, because the current president right now in America, Joe Biden, he really spoke highly of immigration when he was campaigning. So maybe we can take advantage of that and actually really write a letter and say, you are destroying, the country's destroying people's lives when they come here, when in fact they were here to seek refuge, but they are coming to another prison. That's how it feels sometimes, yep. Most of the time. So I think and I would just continue to say, let's reach out to each other, ask each and every voice to be elevated, and not just have one person represent intersex people. Even I'm from Zimbabwe, and there are other intersex people from Zimbabwe who have different experiences than mine. And I shouldn't discourage that just because it's a different story to mine. I think also in the LGBTQ plus community, there's a lot of judgment, just because someone speaks a certain way or they express themselves a certain way, and we choose to silence them just because we don't like something, or maybe something that they did in a survival mode. I think we should be more forgiving, especially because we are vulnerable already. We should encourage forgiveness and vulnerability and open-mindedness and less judgment, and not to blackball each other. If I get an opportunity, I should reach out to Alex and say, Alex, I got this opportunity, but I think our voices should be there together. And I think that's the only way we can progress. If we fight for one position, the fighting will defeat the purpose and overcloud the voice.
Yeah, I would like just a moment. I really like these words, Tatenda, because forgiveness, it's the basis for solidarity. I really like it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful words. I'm so glad that we have this, panel, this conversation is so important. And just wrapping up, incorporating these issues intersectional. We are intersectional human beings, and remind ourselves that one of the core elements that we fight in our activism, obviously, is the bodily autonomy, but as well, we experience discrimination and violence, and that violence can be translated on some of us having to flee countries we come in. That's why we're going to have another panel in which we're going to maybe address some solutions, because we've seen how, not always migration is a solution, or migration to rich countries that becoming more and more hostile to migrants. So that's also something that we have to consider. And for everyone who's working on intersex issues to remind themselves of the importance of including, those that are actually, are living in forcible migration, and also for those who are working in LGBT plus or Q without the I, maybe much included, to remember to include the intersex people and the intersex experiences. And as Tatenda said, don't always center these issues on a person. Center the issues globally, in general, as a term, as any person can have different sex characteristics, as we all have our own gender identity and all sexual orientation. Sex characteristics is another ground that is very useful for intersex people to find protection. Actually, sex characteristics maybe are one of the main reasons why trans people is discriminated, because this is something, it's just another element of the human identity that we have to explore more. And we have to ensure that it's in every policy, not just in the US, maybe here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Europe, and any other country that is receiving refugees. Thank you so much, Tatenda. Thank you so much, Alexander. And I'm just gonna go to the next item in the agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, I have the pleasure of inviting Victor Madrigal-Borlos to our event. Victor is currently the UN independent expert on protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity for a 3-year period that started on the 1st of January 2018. In this capacity, he assesses the implementation of international human rights law, raises awareness, engages in dialogues with all relevant stakeholders, and provides advisory services, technical assistance, capacity building, to help address violence and discriminations against persons on the basis of SOGI, or sexual orientation, gender identity. We're hoping to listen to him and the power of the togetherness and building bridges for our intersex community with other communities and other human rights issues that intersect our identities. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you very much, Eileen. It's very, very moving for me to be here with you today. I have appreciated very much listening to the previous speakers and being part of this event, in which, of course, remembrance plays such an important role. And already some of the presentation, and of course, most importantly, the invocation to our elders, made me think of the fact that it is important, in order to be remembered as we are. And of course, in order to be remembered as we are, we need to be known as we are, the very essence of visibility. And therefore, I very much have appreciated the thoughts and the feelings that the invocation to remember and to remember our elders as well has actually invited me to do. Eileen, I very much appreciate the invitation to participate in this event and to participate in this conversation. As you already said, I'm Victor, I'm the independent expert of the United Nations, and my mandate is to bring visibility to the way in which violence and discrimination occurs on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity around the world, and to identify measures that may lead to effective state action in the realm of public policy or legislation or access to justice. Now, one of the great advantages of the way that my mandate is crafted, you all have already heard that it is crafted on the idea that it will cover anyone affected by discrimination and violence that is based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And that means that my mandate is not exclusively or even decisively defined only by particular political identities of the alphabet soup. It actually goes beyond that into all of the manifestations of violence that result from particular expectations attached to gender. And in that sense, since the very beginning of my mandate, I was actually rather careful not to include different identities unless I actually was clear that I was speaking of the particular problems that affected the specific community or population or peoples. And this is the first reflection that I would like to share with you today. I come with you with deep humility and an awareness of the fact that historically one of the difficulties that is faced by intersex activism is the automatic conflation of the letter I into a series of letters that eventually may lead to the erasure of the specific problematic faced by intersex persons. And I believe some of our colleagues today, not least Tatenda and Alexander, were making mention of this fact. Since very early on in my mandate, I became convinced while listening to the voices of diverse intersex lived experience, that it would be important that there would be never really an automatic conflation into this alphabet acronym, but that actually there would be a reflection into what specifically are the human rights-based, the human rights problematic faced by intersex persons. And in doing so, of course, I often get the question when I issue a statement or I speak publicly on issues that affect, for example, LGBT persons, why am I not actually including the I? And my answer is always the same. I do not include it automatically, but I make sure that I'm careful to include it when the problematic is clearly related to the issue and that I can speak to the specificities of it. I often invite people that I speak with to always remind themselves to look around in the room, to look around in the screen of their meetings as to who is not there that should be there. And of course, it is not the same as thinking that people are speaking for a collective that may be perceived as homogeneous when you say LGBTI, then to ask yourself exactly how each one of those different identities, political or otherwise socially determined, might be affected by the problematic that you're discussing. And to me, that is the essence of respect, is the essence of acknowledging that it is the particular representation that has to take the lead in understanding what the problematic is. So in that sense, alien and dear friends, I'm actually taking part of this conversation today as one more of the persons taking part of the conversation, but also listening very keenly to what you all have to say. Now, as you may know, already now, I think the activism, intersex activism, has made significant inroads in the approach adopted by the United Nations human rights machinery. I believe that this is the result of your determined approach to ensuring that specific differentiated approaches would be adopted when that is necessary and adequate for the particular problems of intersex persons. And there is a particular thread of work led by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights that has understood these specificities and has actually crafted a background note on the human rights problems faced by intersex persons. In this note, which I'm assuming most of you know, but those who don't, I invite you very warmly to use it in your advocacy. In this note, there is a detailed explanation crafted as a result of intersex voices that lent their expertise to the Office of the High Commissioner, and that goes from the very basic explanation as to what exactly is it that persons who identify themselves as intersex are establishing as the limits of their or the confines of their existence, how they define themselves, how they actually choose language in relation to defining themselves. And then it goes on to expressing and explaining the different elements of human rights specific problematics faced by intersex persons. And of course, it recognizes that intersex persons have distinct lived experiences and human rights concerns. And it reinforces the notion that I welcome that any attempt to include automatically intersex within frameworks around sexual orientation and gender identity often lack relevance or specific consideration of human rights issues affecting intersex persons. And therefore, this issue that Tatenda was making mention of, I believe, which is the fact that as a result, a number of civil society organizations and human rights experts have expanding that framework to add issues relating to sexual characteristics. Now, oftentimes this can be not necessarily negative. That is, of course, the case of the Yogyakarta Principles +10, where as a result of participation, active participation and input from intersex expertise, the issue of sex characteristics was included in a way that, in my view, is actually articulate and clear and provides the necessary specificity for a framework. Yogyakarta +10 is an example of the manner in which the human rights concerns of intersex persons may be framed as essentially an interdisciplinary endeavor within the United Nations framework. And I myself have often engaged with my colleagues, the Special Rapporteur on the right, on the freedom from torture, the working group against discrimination against women and girls, the Special Rapporteur on violence against women, as some of the most evident involved mandates in relation to the human rights problematics of intersex persons. But as time goes by, and as we listen to intersex expertise over their own lived experiences, we realize that more mandates are involved in a very clear way. Let me give you the example, of the Special Rapporteur on Right to Truth, whose mandate has become very apparently, to me, involved in these issues because of the issue of access to medical records and historical truths in relation to intersex persons. And obviously, of course, the Special Rapporteur on Right to Health, my dear colleague and friend Laleng Mofokeng, who, as many of you may know, is going to devote her next report to exploring health-based concerns of intersex persons. And of course, I take this opportunity to invite you very warmly to interact with the Special Rapporteur on Right to Health in the issuance of that report, which I think will be of fundamental importance. All of you know, I believe, already the statement by the Special Rapporteur against torture in relation to the heinously called normalizing procedures against intersex persons, and the fact that they are, of course, a form of torture. I think that it is evident in all of this that for me, the basis and the essence of the approach is understanding that within intersectional and interdisciplinary approaches, the keyword of intersex does bring a point of entry into the analysis of discrimination and violence, one that reveals itself very important if we want to ensure that the United Nations framework is comprehensive and clear. And as you now know, I am very keen on not drawing and portraying myself as working automatically over all of these issues, but rather as part of a contribution that is interdisciplinary in nature. And with this, I'd like to leave you with my last set of ideas, which is basically surrounding my findings, very much connected to my reports on gender, which I presented this year to the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly of the United Nations. My inquiry on gender and gender identity answered to the question as to whether gender identity and gender have been incorporated in international human rights law frameworks, and the impact that this incorporation has in the protection of human rights, and furthermore, how to understand exclusionary approaches that claim that gender should not be used as a tool in international human rights law and that gender identity does not exist. And within that inquiry, I found myself receiving a lot of evidence from many of you in relation to the fact that there is an inextricable connection between gender stereotype and expectation, and certainly stigma, associated to the manner in which society creates expectations for roles and behaviors and specific pathways in lives, and associates them with genitalia and the reality, the biological reality of sex characteristics. So you will find in my report on gender, in my reports on gender, frequent mentions to the human rights problematic faced by intersex persons, and that is because I believe I was able to draw this connection with that set of expectations, and then in that connection and within that realm, far from being an automatic association, there is, in my view, a rich way to understand the manner in which gender and gender identity do lie at the base of some of the answers to decode the stigma and discrimination that lie within and at the origin of some of the heinous violations that are suffered by the intersex peoples. I would like to conclude this presentation by reiterating how important it is for me that you all know that the mandate of the independent expert remains available to listen and to discover this texture, these nuances that your lived experience reveals, and to the effect that it can be useful to helping you craft your strategies. We will always be there for the intersex communities, persons, and peoples. There is a lot that binds us together, and unfortunately, just like prejudice and stigma binds us together, the consequences of stigma and discrimination binds us together. I have recently had the opportunity, the sad opportunity, I should say, to study the horrifying draft legislation proposed in Ghana, a legislation that is admittedly aiming at enforcing a certain number of notions in relation to sexual orientation and gender identity, but that becomes an example of how ignorance actually will propel an automatic set of violations on intersex persons without even the slightest notion of how absolutely prejudiced the views on intersex persons are. Some of you may know that this draft legislation actually criminalizes intersex persons just because of the characteristics that they're born with. I find that a horrifying example of how stigma and discrimination that lie at the origin of all discrimination and violence sometimes conflates itself to put us all in a situation of being together in having to face some of these challenges. Alien, thank you very much for your invitation, and to the friends and colleagues around the screen and around the world. I'm very, very pleased, very honored, and very humbled to be amongst you today. Please stay safe, take care of yourselves.
Thank you so much, Victor, for this wonderful intervention. I really appreciate all these important elements that you were discussing. And as we were discussing, we're trying to unwrap a little bit more those different intersecting elements of our identity. And we started to understand from a more legal point of view how we can actually provide support and assistance and help, and to make sure that we live in a society where we all can enjoy our diverse existences, because we are diverse in multiple different ways. Thank you so much, Victor. I appreciate all your wonderful words, and thank you so much for always finding a way to, to introduce intersex issues in your mandate, which we are aware that those issues are part of, but not precisely centered on the work you do. But hopefully we can somehow in the future find ways to incorporate the sex characteristics as well, and other work yet to come. Now I have the second panel. Thank you so much. I'm gonna invite our 4 panelists for the panel, which is the intersex stories from the Global South and the impact of COVID-19 and standing in solidarity with the Global South. So COVID-19 has impacted our communities. We all know that COVID does not care who we are, where we live, what we believe, and while the virus doesn't discriminate, our communities have been impacted disproportionately. We have learned from many stories that the Global South has been impacted in unimaginable ways. Despite the upcoming challenges and the many lives lost with COVID-19, we have learned that we are not safe until we are all safe. And that analogy is an analogy that dignifies the importance of helping our intersex communities in the Global South. We are in this together. We must act now to strengthen the immunity of our movement in our societies against the virus of hate, fear, and stigma. A virus that has ruled for many decades, and that we are learning with our collective efforts to fight, and hoping one day we can eliminate. In this vulnerable panel, we want to illustrate these issues affecting the intersex community, particularly in the Global South, and more importantly, and in particularly, the issues that have been amplified during this pandemic. We're gonna have 4 speakers, Obioma Chukwuike, my apologies if I'm not pronouncing that right, who is the Director of Intersex Nigeria, Julian Parra, who's the Director of Intersex Venezuela, Gaby Gonzalez, who directs Orquídea Intersexual in Argentina, and Heike Chu, who is the Executive Director at Intersex Asia. So I was just wondering if I can spotlight all the panelists that are gonna join us today. I think we're missing Obioma and Julian. We're just getting some the spotlight of Obioma and also Julian. I think Julian is around. Yes, and now we just need Julian. Julian, ¿puedes poner tu cámara? Wonderful. We just need one more and then we're ready to go. Julian. Perfect. Now we are all 5 in the spotlight. Wonderful. So the biographies for all the 4 speakers that we have today are available in the link that I'm sending, because if I introduce them all, we will lose our time and we don't have much time left. So I'm just gonna send the biographies in case you want to learn more about our guests today. And I think we just go right straight on the substance of the meeting today. So I have 4 questions and I'm hoping we can all answer these questions as we go. I'm aware that we have 2 persons that use Spanish as a native language and the only language for communication. So in order to make sure we all speak and understand each other, I just want to ask you to speak slowly so the interpreters can do their amazing work in translation, all right? Now, with this introduction, I would like to ask a question to all of you 4, and I will begin with Hiker. If you can help us illustrate now with the work, because I'm aware that all of you 4 were part of a survey, internet survey, obviously with collaboration of multiple other civil society organizations, where you're trying to find how COVID-19 has impacted you and the intersex community where you live. So if you can, in a nutshell, in a few minutes, just give us an idea of how COVID has impacted your community in Asia, Hiker.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I'm from Taiwan. But for me, for people in intersex people in Taiwan, actually are still very rare, contact from with us. So I can share more about information from our COVID-19 survey. In our survey, actually, the top 3 impacts to intersex people in Asia are finance, mental health, and employment. And also the continuing one is education. So yeah, so I think the most important one is the impact to the livelihood and surviving issue, because like job in the formal sector have almost disappeared, and it poses a threat to survival to many intersex people. And there are 82% of respondents getting fewer contracts because of the economic impact of the pandemic. And many respondents said it is tough for them since they cannot have stable savings. And some intersex people were even kicked out by a family due to financial issues. Some intersex people have no ID due to discrimination. It also impacts their access to any social welfare. So overall, actually, livelihood issue is an emerging issue extending during the pandemic. And I want to emphasize that the roots of these, issue actually for intersex people, I think it's mostly from discrimination, because due to discrimination, many intersex people could not finish their education in a proper way, and so they couldn't get a good job. So it made them can only do job only for only daily basis to earn the wages for daily basis. So it's a kind of a vicious cycle for intersex people to survive. So we discover this vicious circle caused by social discrimination is severe in Asia, especially for the country that is underdeveloped.
Thank you so much, Hiker. Now, I just wanted to hand it over to Obioma, and if you can just summarize us based on that report, how COVID has impacted your community, where you live, particularly in your country, but also your region.
Thank you, Eliana. COVID cannot be overemphasized, the impact it has had on the intersex community. Here in Nigeria, where I'm from and where I live, COVID impacted in three ways. One is the economic and financial impact of the lives of intersex persons. Then the healthcare, assessing healthcare system became very problematic. And finally, these are like the three, top ones. The safety and security of intersex persons became more aggravated in the scale of what they went through. Because during COVID, when COVID started, there were lockdowns and people were locked down with people that their partners or family members, people had to go home to where they can sustain more. So a lot of people some people were trapped where they couldn't move. And going by the realities most intersex persons face, it worsened because they had to now not only survive by eating, but also be safe where they are. Some of them were beaten, some of them were verbally abused, some of them were denied their basic human rights. Some mentioned that in the families where they come from, when they went back during the lockdown, some are still there, that their families don't recognize their gender identity, and they still face this discrimination and stigmatization within their environment and community. And this becomes very problematic because no one is there to speak for them. No one is there to encourage them. It also affected their mental health, because when all these things are going through, when you're going through financial and economic challenges, you're going through not accessing the right doctor that can help you through what you're passing through, and coupled with also safety and security where you are staying, or the environment where you are doesn't really accept you for whom you are. It's like having like a multiple, challenges and issues at the same time. And this can also make you not to achieve your full potential as a human being. So in a nutshell, before COVID came, intersex persons here in Nigeria and Africa experienced another type of pandemic in discrimination, in prejudice, in stereotyping, and in stigmatization and harmful practices. So now the COVID came and worsened it because a lot of things have changed in the economic system. A lot of things have changed in the healthcare, and most intersex persons who can't afford the basic daily life can't even afford to access maybe private healthcare systems when they can actually walk in. They have to rely on the government healthcare systems, and government healthcare systems don't have the facilities. Apart from not having the facilities, the medical practitioners there are not friendly and welcoming to intersex persons. Instead, most intersex persons go to the healthcare facilities to access comprehensive SRHS services and other services. Their body becomes a medium of experiments. So all these things withdraw intersex persons. I've had a lot of conversations with intersex persons, not just in Nigeria, in Africa, how they don't want to go to the hospitals because it's totally unfriendly for them. So these are some of the challenges that intersex persons are facing here in Nigeria and in Africa in this COVID.
Yeah, and I think you just brought an issue that I think is very relevant. Obviously, we are in a new normal, and we have particular medical issues that need to be addressed in one way or another. And many of us have experienced problems, health problems. Even us and the community we represent have been dealing with multiple problems. So I just want to bring in Julian. So I'm just gonna switch into Spanish. I will speak to Julian in Spanish. Okay, so just give me a second. Entonces, mi Julián, yo te voy a hablar en español, mi Julián, entonces yo creo que no vas a necesitar interpretarme. Yo lo que quería preguntarte, mi Juli, es si nos puedes dar un poco una visión de lo que tú has experimentado personalmente y también por el movimiento que representas, por la comunidad intersex que representas. ¿Qué ha sido particularmente difícil con tu activismo en Venezuela, cómo el COVID te ha impactado tanto a ti como a la comunidad que representas.
Primero que nada, buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches para todos en las localidades en donde se encuentren. Muchísimas gracias a Aileen y a la comunidad de ILGA World y a la comunidad que represento como el CALAC por hacer posible este encuentro visible, hacer visible este encuentro posible. Fíjate, en cuanto a las interrogantes que me estás planteando, Venezuela ya es el país de las dificultades, ¿ok? Si vivir en Venezuela sin pandemia es difícil, vivir en Venezuela con pandemia es aún imposible. Incluso estar compartiendo ahorita con ustedes, estar conectado ahorita, es un reto ya es un reto porque las limitantes en cuanto al acceso a comunicación son infinitos, ¿ok? Poder estar aquí esta mañana con ustedes ya es un logro, poder estar conectado a esta hora es netamente un privilegio y poderles escuchar. No tienen idea lo mucho que he recorrido para poder conseguir una buena señal y poder compartir esta necesidad, porque ya es una necesidad que ustedes escuchen y sepan la realidad por la cual Venezuela está más que en el ojo del huracán. Venezuela vive en un sistema totalitario y ese sistema totalitario ha sido aún más agresivo con las personas intersex. Si bien es cierto, como han comentado los compañeros, las compañeras y les compañeros, ya antes de la pandemia nosotros las personas intersex vivíamos una propia pandemia, esa pandemia de discriminación, esa pandemia de desasosiego, esa pandemia de vulneración, esa pandemia de limitación a los accesos de salud, a los accesos de medicamentos, incluso a los accesos de transporte, a los accesos de empleo, empleos dignos, a los accesos para, ustedes no tienen idea de adquirir lo más mínimo, lo más esencial que tenga el ser humano. La pandemia por COVID-19 para las personas intersexuales ha sido aún más crítica. Si bien es cierto, Venezuela carece de un sistema democrático, estamos en un sistema totalitario que ha incidido en que se tomen decisiones garrafales en cuanto a los accesos a la salud. Si no tienes COVID, sencillamente no eres atendido ni en los centros minúsculos como ambulatorios, ni en centros centinelas como hospitales, siquiera en hospitales privados. Entonces la pandemia ha sido muy enfática en lo que es los accesos a la salud, incluso adquirir medicamentos, medicamentos que nosotros las personas intersex podemos utilizar y debemos utilizar para sostener o para optimizar nuestra salud han sido imposibles de adquirir. Si bien es cierto, pudiéramos recibir ayudas a nivel internacional, incluso recibir esas ayudas a nivel internacional pueden pasar meses, semanas, meses para que pueda ingresar aunque sea un medicamento al país. Entonces, la COVID-19 ha sido muy violenta con Venezuela, ha sido muy violenta a nivel de instituciones de salud, ha sido muy violenta a nivel de adquirir medicamentos, ha sido muy violenta. Las pérdidas de empleos han sido incalculables. Y si bien es cierto, nosotros tenemos un salario mínimo de $1.5 al mes, ese $1.5 al mes pudiéramos incluso utilizarlo para cosas muy ínfimas, pero los empleos se han perdido, ¿ok? Se ha perdido el acceso a la comunicación, se han acentuado las limitaciones en cuanto a acceder a los servicios de salud. En cuanto al movimiento intersex venezolano, se ha visto muy limitado, se ha visto realmente limitado en cuanto a el alcance que pudiéramos haber realizado en cuanto a trabajo, en cuanto a manifestación, en cuanto a empoderamiento. Pues sencillamente el sistema totalitario ha sido aún más incisivo, una persecución diaria hacia el movimiento intersex únicamente para aprovecharse de nuestras historias, de nuestras anécdotas, de nuestras corporalidades para ellos visibilizarse como si fueran el lado bueno de la historia. Esto como para resumidas cuentas y darle el paso al resto de los compañeros. Muchas gracias.
Vale, muchísimas gracias, mi Julia. De verdad que aprecio tu intervención, me llega al corazón, en especial pues sabiendo de que tú también has tenido limitaciones y también la comunidad que representas, ¿no? Ahora, hablando un poco más de la región a la que estamos refiriéndonos, que es América Latina, en particularidad con Argentina. Yo quiero darle paso a Gaby, que quizá nos pueda dar algunos comentarios sobre la encuesta que se hizo en la región, que fue una encuesta que respondieron algunas personas que tuvieron la capacidad de responder por la encuesta. Si nos puedes dar un poco, a grosso modo, ¿qué encontraste en los resultados de la encuesta que realizaste durante el 2020 sobre los efectos que tuvo el COVID en la comunidad intersex de América Latina?
Bueno, buenos días a todas, a todos y a todes. Bueno, represento a Argentina, la organización Orquídea Intersexual, junto con ILGA, Julián, también participamos en la encuesta y otras organizaciones que fue propuesta por la Organización Intersex Internacional de Europa en el comité, y a partir de ahí, bueno, digamos, trabajamos en la encuesta para ver las condiciones y la situación que atraviesa las personas intersex en toda Latinoamérica. Como, digamos, punto principal, la encuesta fue una muestra más o menos de 80 personas las que pudieron participar, entre personas intersex y familias, y específicamente mostraron, y la encuesta dio a reflejar un incremento, digamos, de las problemáticas en el acceso económico de las familias y de las personas intersex, dejando a las personas y sufriendo problemáticas en torno digamos, del nivel económico y del acceso al trabajo, lo que se vio complejizado, ya sabemos, por nuestras propias situaciones corporales, que necesitamos tener más acceso a los sistemas de salud, y digamos, en ese momento que se vivió durante pandemia, muchas personas, y como otros compañeros mencionaron, dejaron de asistir a los espacios y a los hospitales para tener asistencia de salud, también por el temor propiamente del COVID, pero también, bueno, en muchos casos algunas personas tienen temor de asistir a los espacios de salud debido al maltrato que sufren en tal caso por el sistema médico, al no entender las corporalidades que atravesamos y que vivimos. Entonces, frente a esas situaciones, las personas dejan de asistir a los espacios médicos y dejan de tener su asistencia adecuada de salubridad. Principalmente lo que se vio, como también otros compañeros mencionan, es la problemática en torno de la economía y el acceso al trabajo y el acceso digamos, a bienes como son los alimentos y a medicamentos, porque hay un nivel inflacionario excesivo y eso hizo de que se aumentaran excesivamente los precios de alimentos y de medicación, y por supuesto también en el sistema de salud. Como ustedes saben, bueno, somos personas que necesitamos en muchos casos la asistencia clínica médica y la asistencia también de consumo de medicamentos, y el no tener acceso al trabajo, no tener acceso, digamos, a los niveles adecuados económicos, complejiza aún más, digamos, la situación general que pueden vivir la comunidad intersex. Bueno, también se puede ver situaciones de discriminación que se han ido incrementando en el correr del tiempo, y bueno, por el avance de la pandemia, las personas se ven aún más vulnerables frente a toda esta situación, ¿no? Así que bueno, muchas gracias.
Sí, y una de las cosas que a mí me llamaba mucho la atención es que, a pesar de que no tuviéramos recursos y pues que gente se estuviera muriendo en las afueras de un hospital, cirugías a personas intersex seguían ocurriendo. Entonces, eso simplemente demuestra esa distorsión de la realidad, ¿no? Tenemos un mundo en el cual la gente se muere en las puertas de un hospital, pero un bebé intersex es mutilado. Y yo vi eso y percibí esa realidad en mi región, de donde yo vengo, Colombia, y Tú, Gaby, sabrás, en Argentina y muchas otras partes de América Latina, y eso me parece a mí increíble de no creer, me parece imposible de imaginar cuán es esa urgencia de modificar los genitales de una persona. Tan es la urgencia que inclusive en situaciones de una pandemia esas cirugías siguen ocurriendo. Entonces, bueno, quiero agradecerles a todos ustedes por haber hecho parte de este evento. Voy a pasarme ahora al inglés. So I'm gonna just switch now into the English. And I just want to, I want to thank you everyone for joining, especially Hiker, Obioma, Julian, and Gavi. I know that for some of you, the internet is a problem. I just want to acknowledge that the digital divide is a problem. It's something that is happening. So having Julian, for instance, today with us is actually a pleasure and is a privilege that I take for granted, because I understand how challenging it is for Julian to have just 20 minutes of internet and to be able to join us. So I really want to thank you, Julian, for being with us. And I want to thank you for sharing your stories. We are just on time for our break. So we're gonna have a short break. So go take a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever suits your time. And after 10 minutes, approximately 10 to 15 minutes, we will be back with a wonderful song, a wonderful gospel song. First time that we have a singer, an intersex singer, an apostle, delighting us with a wonderful power of gospel music. So you better take a cup of coffee, tea, whatever drink you have nearby. And I'm just gonna put a video reminding you all how beautiful we all are. Thank you. Okay, so I think with this song, I think I just wanted to put a little bit on the sense of we are all beautiful, no matter what. And I think our lovely singer, Darlan, from wonderful Kenya, is gonna bring us some joy. I think Darlan is gonna delight us with some gospel music. Wonderful music from the heart, from our spirits. They made this beautiful song just for us. So you are the first people to listen to this song. And it's a song just made for us to elevate our spirits as intersex people. And I'm very glad that we are gonna have the opportunity of listening a gospel singer that has millions of views in YouTube, a gospel singer that has been able to navigate the challenges of being intersex and at the same time and being embraced by millions of Kenyans. Is that without further ado, I want to let my lovely Darlan Rookie go ahead with a beautiful song for all of us, for all the intersex community of the world. Go ahead, my dear.
Thank you. This is me, Darlan Rookie. We love you all. And you.
I am Priestess Sister Rahadan Pila.
Thank you.
I'm Priestess Darren Ilaven.
Thank you. Welcome. We want to sing a song entitled "There is a Joy in My Heart That the World Cannot Give. It comes from the Lord." Now, help me sing. We shall sing together. There is a joy in my heart that the world cannot give, but it comes from the Lord. My life to Him I give. There is a joy in my heart that the world cannot give, but it comes from the Lord. My life to Him I give. To the one to whom I love, to the one to whom I owe, my burdens and chains have been lifted, Lord. to the one to my love, to the one to my own. My burdens and chains have been lifted up. My spirit delivered from the things of the earth. My eye believer, what a glorious liberty. My spirit delivered from the things of the earth. My eye believer, what a glorious liberty. What a joy in reality. Such a work of love divine. None of self follow thee. Is my cry within. What a joy in reality. Such a work of love divine. None of self follow thee. Is my cry within. Serving him all the time. Nor a care, nor a fear. Can allow me on my way. My anchor finding you. Serving him all the time. Nor a care, nor a fear. Can allow me on my way. My anchor finding you. Pleasing him every day. What a glorious victory. From all sins and away. To become his spotless bride. Pleasing him every day. What a glorious victory. From all sins and away. To become his spotless bride. There to sin rest with him. Ever walking close with him. So to reign with him now. From this body we are free. There to sin rest with him. Ever walking close with him. So to reign with him now. From this body we are free. We are safe, praise the Lord. Faithful be ready be. Soon our Lord we will see. What a joyous liberty. We are safe, praise the Lord. Faithful be ready be. Soon our Lord we will see. What a glorious liberty. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. Very much comfortable the way I am. Oh, I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. Very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. Very much comfortable the way I am. Oh, I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. I'm very much comfortable the way I am. Very much comfortable the way I am. Thank you. I want to sing another song if time allows. If time allows, we can sing this song. It is in our local language, our native language, but it speaks about who we are.
You know what? Go ahead, my dear. You know, you've been so amazing. I don't care about schedules. Go ahead. It's amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Sama beni churi kigo yo tumbe rabi ejoro modena ninga ninga ananyi sojo gininga nikingi jala lalagi ni malo ebote imi ojo wangu yo mokalo pimo kuma imi ojo wangu yo mokalo pimo udi jora chere musiep nani babu tuone to misungu mosiepna. Yesu wedi chewa enindo tieno ya ber windo dala muse kupodo. Osiepe maricho maji oweyo tenge tuonero mare makatali. Osiepe maricho maji oweyo jaduo tuonero mare makatamwofu. Osiepe maricho maji oweyo tenge tuonero mare makatagala. Yesu mama pingi tonga no talo leba ngenga no yanya ediriji. Yesu mama tali tonga no rado koda ngenga no nega kaneno. Kikiwe na lelo jaera na shilo Ruthi mwana Mario loko paro. Simoni kwero modo kopala aye. Achalo gi kefa modo kopala. Namata lo Yesu tonga no donjo e wanga. Bere mondo yanya ne wachinia. Wudi mama Mary mosiep nani dala. Wudi doloro sa moka o namba. Simba karejina moka o namba babu. Ofisa kadosi la jana zare. Ngani moro chunya moto timo dadi. Tabiri moro chunya moto muhanga. Nadi pati chanda mani dorumo ewanga. Nadi pati chanda edieriji. Gini chalo neko moke toparo jiwa. Ayenge luo banga ne wachinia. Inenga maduro mwase mwate wipi jaduo. Isenyo napaka kikalo. Inenga magero mwase kweyo ya mo epi. Dadi ya mo winji jaherana. Neni kwero lejo mondo jetidi jaduo. Mudo winjo duondi gera siegwe. Imio momo woyo majio woro esala. Mudo ringo nimi godhiambo. Kajairi chengo majio penjo kinga. Okilinga mapenji tiduoko. Okile dumbe wori mokalo jaduo. Ngamata lo nyingi to wango iji. Dagi makulweta kauoto babu. Wasiku katala wataringo. Achalo gapolo mona ke gode bungu. Jodwaro bayo chunya gaserini. Dagi makulweta atimli babu. Wana makulweta kauoto. Ine mwana jeshi mosega kedo eloe. Wana miatungi wa kedo. Kaponi deko taringo ngema. Venyo ingo dako mapoditin. Wotuturo chiegi edieriti babu. Dagire tupio jabero. Ananga otumba eyende sani. Atubuka vero Yesu na koda podi. Acha kotundo tumba to podi babu. Amiro vero Yesu kaji yoseye. Onayalo Yesu mokuongo mondi. Mondo jionge ini ininga. Jomoko yalo Yesu topo ini. Onge injili dwaro dako moaka uoro. Monu bao ingo uneno. Onge monu weo Yesu dicho dochuo. Numa chuo ingo uneno. Onge chuo manyo mwandu dhigerudi. Numa chido ingo uneno. Onge ojano weo Yesu disero nyiri. Ino ingo nyako moero tedo happy. Nyiri weo Yesu di manyo chuo. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Everyone is so happy about your song. I have the comments like the song. Franco Pradena says that the song and the singers are just amazing. And then I had Jules Gleason says, beautiful song. Thank you. Beautiful energy. And as I said, religion is an instrument. You can use it to love, you can use it to hate. You choose. Yeah, that's the right thing. And thank you so much. I really don't care about schedules, but let's go ahead with our schedule. You are being amazing, Darlan. I'm so happy you give us a chance to be with us, to join us in this beautiful event. And I'm so, so happy I had a chance to hear intersex music played by an intersex singer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so, so, so glad to be able to listen intersexy music, and you just been able to do that and do that in a country that, you know, maybe it's not very positive in terms of like acceptance, but you have managed to navigate through it. So thank you so much. And now I'm gonna start with Bria. So Black Lives Matter is a phrase, and notably a hashtag, used to highlight racism, discrimination, and inequality experienced by Black people. Its use grew in the US after high-profile killing by police, but it also has been used in the UK and elsewhere, even here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Supporters point to the fact that Black people are much more likely to be shot by police in the US, for instance. They say that in the US and many more countries, they also suffer from many other forms of discrimination. When we understand how multiple layers of discrimination and disadvantage intersect, we can understand the complexity of issues that a person faces, and how these overlapping identities and experiences generate synergies that potentiate inequality and oppression. With this being said, I have the pleasure to welcome the following keynote by Bria Brown King. Bria identifies as a Black, queer, non-binary, intersex, and masculine presenting person. Bria is the Director of Engagement at Interact Advocates for Intersex Youth, where they work to build and cultivate relationships with stakeholders and raise awareness about intersex issues. Bria started doing intersex advocacy work as an intern with Interact, where they published articles for the ACLU, Think Vogue, and Them magazine. They were also the first openly intersex person to speak about intersex issues on the steps of the Supreme Court. Bria also serves as advisory board member for multiple organizations representing intersex people nationally and internationally. I hand it on to you, Bria. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you all hear me and see me good? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Darlin, for that beautiful music. Hello, everyone. My name is Bria. My pronouns are they and she. And again, some of the identities that I hold very close is that I am a Black, queer, masculine presenting, non-binary, and intersex person. I am joining you all today from Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Midwestern part of the United States, though depending on who you ask, some might call it South. It is quite an honor to be here with you all, especially today, commemorating Intersex Day of Remembrance and Solidarity, as we all come together to really honor and acknowledge the movement leaders who pave the way for us all to show up and to engage in intersex advocacy work in whatever way we feel called to do so. And for me, today is really about honoring those individuals who have really shown us how the ways in which our willingness to exist beyond expectations is a true testament to our resilience and a sign of our strength, not only as individuals, but as a community, as is our courage to fight against the systems that have tried and continue to try and erase us by forcing our bodies to conform to these archaic standards of what society considers to be normal and healthy. And as a Black intersex person, I can honestly say that these are standards that tend to also be inherently rooted in things like white supremacy, patriarchy, colonialism, etc. Standards that tell us that there is only one right way to have a body, standards that have policed women's bodies, especially Black women, deeming them to be inherently too masculine because they don't fit within the Anglo-European standards of beauty or what society thinks a woman's body is supposed to look like. So I was invited here today to give this keynote and to speak about why Black intersex lives matter. And as I was preparing my talking points and kind of deciding which direction I wanted to go in, I started by asking myself, well, I'm Black, I'm intersex. Why does my life matter? Why is it important for me as a Black intersex person to exist, and not to only exist, but to be engaging in this work? And what does that mean? Unfortunately, the way we look determines how the rest of the world chooses to perceive us and to engage with us. We know that this is true as intersex people who have for decades been the victims of medical violence solely because of the way that we were born, right? But we also know this as Black people who have and still do continue to face unjustifiable violence and discrimination solely because of the color of our skin. And I know that for me personally, coming from a multiply marginalized background, engaging in this work sometimes feels extremely heavy, especially when Black people continue to be the victims of state-sanctioned violence. Now, here in the US, I live in the deep red state of Oklahoma, and at the very height of racial tensions that continue to plague our society today, I remember waking up feeling like every step I took, every move I made from the moment I woke up until the time I went to sleep had to be very well thought out and calculated to make sure that I didn't accidentally piss someone off who hated my existence solely because I was Black. Because for many people that look like me, going about our everyday lives and minding our business makes us a target. Knowing that truth, holding that truth, along with holding the weight of my ancestors, the weight of future generations, the weight of everybody's expectations, and the weight of my own trauma all at the same time, sometimes feels heavy. Sometimes I feel like I just need to put something down for just a second. And while at the end of the day, it feels like if being an activist feels like it's too much for me, I'm allowed to take a break from this work. But what I can't take a break from is being Black. I can't just retire my Blackness because I am Black before I am anything else. And if we are going to do this work in a meaningful way, and if we're going to say that Black intersex lives matter, we must always ensure that our discourse surrounding things like bodily autonomy and intersex justice is discussed through an intersectional lens. And we must remember that in this country that I live, Black people have never had the right to bodily autonomy. We have never had the right to have control over our bodies. We have never had the privilege of just being able to exist peacefully. We see this with things like our natural hairstyles being policed and deemed not professional for work. We have seen this with the Olympics when they ban the sole swimming caps that many Black swimmers use because the caps don't lay flat against their heads because our hair is naturally thick. And don't even get me started on the Olympics and the patriarchal policing of Black women's bodies and their right to privacy constantly being violated. We must acknowledge that Black intersex people are also grappling with things like medical racism. We must acknowledge that each and every time we say things like intersex is as common as people with red hair or green eyes, that we are actually adding to the erasure of Black intersex people and other intersex people of color. Dismantling systems like racism and white supremacy culture really require an ongoing commitment from all of us. And that commitment has to start from within each and every one of us as individuals. We must start to continue creating space for listening, for learning, for building a movement that is inclusive of all intersex people, including intersex people of color. It's no secret that in the United States, the intersex movement is very visibly, predominantly white. And this is a problem. I know we talk a lot about why representation is so important, but I don't think we can truly understand just how important representation is until it becomes personal for us, until we can come face to face with a reflection or a version of ourselves being represented in a story, a book, a TV show, etc. And I think this is particularly important for us as intersex people, because many of us were made to believe that there weren't other people out there like us, right? But while we work to make sure that there is intersex representation, we need to be working equally as hard, if not harder, to make sure that there is also BIPOC intersex representation as well, because Black intersex people and intersex people of color do exist. And this brings me to how I personally got called to this work to begin with back in 2018. And it wasn't that long ago. I was sitting on my couch trying to figure out what my purpose in life was. And I knew that somehow my purpose involved, involved turning my tragedies into triumphs, because that's just something that I knew in my heart was right for me, but I just wasn't quite sure what that looked like or how to get started. The only thing I really knew was that I had experienced a lot of trauma, and that most of it was due to growing up intersex. So it was 2018, and I went to Google and I typed in, what is intersex? And a video popped up. It was actually a BuzzFeed video titled, What It's Like to Be Intersex. This video was published in 2015 and now has over 5 million views. And I'm sure a couple hundred of those views were probably from me alone. But it was a video featuring intersex activists, Pigeon Pagones, Sean Cypher-Wall, Emily Quinn, and Alice Alvarez. And it was the very first time that I had seen live intersex people. But not just intersex people, it was the first time that I had seen intersex people of color, people who looked like me, and they were smiling and they were laughing and they were embracing their own intersex bodies in ways that I never imagined was possible for myself personally. Up until that moment, the only thing that I had ever felt about my body was ashamed. And it wasn't until I saw that video that I knew that it was possible for me to repair the relationship I had with myself. In that moment, I knew that it was possible for me to overcome the immense guilt that I had felt for so many years for agreeing to have genital surgery when I was 13, so that I could finally have a quote unquote normal body, or at least a body that society made me believe was normal. It was a pivotal moment that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it's because for the first time in my life, I had seen intersex people who looked like me. And that is what representation is so important. When we say Black intersex lives matter, it's about challenging ourselves to reimagine the ways that we can take action and meaningfully center and uplift the voices and experiences of Black intersex people in a way that celebrates them, not tokenizes them. Seeing BIPOC intersex joy in that BuzzFeed video was a beautiful moment for me. And we need to witness more moments like that. So on this Intersex Day of Remembrance and Solidarity, I ask that you take some time to remember the moment that you felt called to this work. And also, I implore you to really think about how you can personally commit to affirming the lives of Black intersex people. Because as our Black trans sister, Marsha P. Johnson once said, there is no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Bria. I'm so glad for that wonderful intervention and just reminded us how intersectional we are, how different we can be, and how these different elements that intersect our identity impact on who we are. It's not just intersex, multiple elements that makes us who we are. And we cannot just isolate each part of our identity so people can understand us better. We just have to embrace how we are for the multiple colors we are, religions, and all the other things that just simply makes us who we are. And I had 2 comments. I say, wonderful speech from Bria Brown. So I have Emily just say that to you. I'm sorry for my accent. You know, I have a very Spanish sounding accent. And I have Franco Pradenas. It says, I really want to thank you for all your amazing opportunity to meet you all and the opportunity for your admirable lives and fights. I do really appreciate that. And I also have a comment from Hiker, says, I had the same experiences as Bria. Seeing intersex positively is super inspiring. It just changed my life totally. And lots of intersexy hugs and wonderful, meetings. Thank you so much, Bria, for your time. Thank you so much for waking up this early in the morning just to join us. I appreciate that. Wonderful. Now,
Thank you so much.
Now we're going to bring in the spotlight Luan Bertol from ILGA Europe, Mariano Ruiz de Sanco from Amal and Argentina, and Darlan Rookie, who was our gospel singer. And I'm just going to go with brief opening. So for decades, brave intersex activists have firstly revealed the severe human rights violations intersex persons are subjected to across the globe. However, it is only rather recently that those human rights violations have received some increased attention in national and international human rights discourses. Often mainstream human rights actors have a lot of goodwill and good intentions to help and end these appalling and harmful practices, but they lack the background and knowledge to advocate and engage on these issues. While as a community, we try hard to ensure our voices and experiences are heard, we often lack the capacity to engage with multiple groups working on both areas of health, LGBTQ plus rights. And in this third panel, we're trying to navigate in solutions to some of the problems that we have discussed today, particularly in relation to discrimination, persecution, and forcible displacement. So in this third panel, we hope to hear from the guest speakers some solutions or recommendations that can reflect on how we can be a good ally to intersex people or intersex rights, and how to build knowledge and avoid common traps and shortfalls, and empower intersex human rights defenders and activists without taking their space in human rights discourses. Now I have my pleasure to introduce Luan Bertol from ILGA Europe. So Luan, I think you can just, if you want to introduce yourself, and then I just will ask you some questions.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Luan Bertel. I'm a staff member from OII Europe. I'm the Training and Education Officer, and I'm also member of OII Austria. And yeah, I also do their education work and peer counseling for intersex people.
Luan, can you please let us know more about what ways we can do from the global north to support intersex refugees and migrants? And also, if you can just let us know more about what are the challenges do you think intersex migrants and refugees experience in Europe? What do you think the intersex civil society, as the society you are actually representing, can do to assist intersex people facing forcible displacement?
Yeah, thank you. I've been assisting refugees and migrants as long as I can remember. And intersex refugees, I'm assisting now since nearly 6 years, I would say. And I think there are so many ways to assist, on like helping to prepare an asylum interview, going with them to the asylum interview, find housing, find therapists, accompany them to doctors if needed. And of course, like peer support is a very big topic, but I will come to that point later a little bit. The challenges in Europe, I think, I mean, there are a lot of challenges, especially as a refugee or an asylum seeker, or also as an intersex person. But putting that together, I think there are two big challenges from my point of view. And one thing is that people, they are working in asylum offices, are having no clue about intersex issues. And also, what we should not forget, most of the countries in Europe are still discriminating intersex people in the society and of course in the medical system. So the medical system is not safe for intersex people, so also not for intersex refugees and migrants. What we are doing right now as OII Europe, or what I do right now, is I work on a toolkit for people who work with intersex refugees and asylum seekers to give more details about intersex issues, and also to point out the challenges in the medical system, and of course all the problems with housing during an asylum case. And I mean, a lot of more things, like we worked already on, so we have already a lot of, like in Germany and in Austria, we already have happily positive decisions on intersex asylum cases. And we also work through, or we want to work through the different positive decisions they are made. Yeah, or they were made. But of course, I'm not an refugee or migrant myself. I'm a white person. So what is important for me is to work together, to ask people if they would share their expertise on having an asylum or migrant or refugee experience, and to work together with them. Of course, what is also important, to be able to pay that. So that is also a very important part for us. So we can write this toolkit.
Wonderful. I think that toolkits are great because it somehow can help us to understand, like the 1, 2, 3 steps on how we can support intersex refugees. And I think in a world where we are so invisible, I think you are just paving that way for, future refugees that might come across. And then now we have the opportunity to speak with Mariano. So, Mariano comes from an intersectional site in which they more than offering examples, they're actually offering solutions. So Mariano is gonna, if you can tell us more about yourself, Mariano, and the work that you do with the AMAL, the organization you lead in relation to the support of LGBT people, and how you provided that support, and maybe how that can somehow intersect and help intersex people. How do you think we can use your experiences to help us, our community? And how can we, as a collective, work together so we can find better mechanisms or solutions better tailored for intersex people? We know what's happening in many parts of West Africa, where actually being intersex is being criminalized. So how can we, for instance, help, let's say, intersex Ghanaians or people that are being persecuted just for being themselves and for being born without that agency of controlling how their body naturally presents a diversity? So I pass it on to you, Mariano.
Thanks very much, Elian, for inviting me being here. My name is Mariano Ruiz. I'm Argentine. Sorry that I was yawning, but I'm now located in San Diego, California. It's 5:30 a.m. here, more or less. I just came with a project sponsored by the US Embassy in Argentina to know the reality of the southern border and explore how organizations are helping LGBTIQ individuals from one and the other side of the border here in the US and Mexico. So the first time that Alien touched base with me, invited me to this panel, I was surprised, just because honestly, in my organization, we just have experience working. We always say that we work with LGBTIQ plus community, but to be honest, and this is something that most of us that work supporting refugees and migrants see, unfortunately, our brothers and sisters that are trans or intersex or queer or just non-conforming are the ones that have the less opportunities to be able to seek asylum somewhere else, just because there's no closet for them. So our experience in Argentina has been really positive, working with gay men and lesbian women and some trans folks that were having the privilege to be able to escape from the countries of origin and get to a safe haven. So honestly, when we were talking about how this can help the intersex community, I think that one of the main things we need to take into consideration, especially we as cisgender activists, we need to interact more with the intersex community. We need to know more about what are the challenges. And like, for example, Alien, at a week ago, we were talking about the criminalization of being intersex in Ghana. And at the same time, I was replying that the first person I served in Argentina was a Ghanaian. So we need to start talking more in between organizations that support refugees and migrants and the intersex community. Just because if we don't do it, if we don't collaborate in between ourselves, there's no way to help. And I think us as a cisgender gay man with a lot of privileges, we need to talk more with our brothers and sisters that are intersex in different parts of the world, to know what's their reality and to primarily open our ears and just listen and see ways to help. sometimes these people are not able to reach to the main organizations, the ones that provide funding, the ones that provide safe routes. So it's our responsibility to help them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mariano. And as you said, AMAL as an organization is there, and not always the North is the answer. Sometimes we hope the North to be the answer, but as you said, AMAL, could assist some of us in a situation in which we definitely need to find a way to escape persecution.
And
I think that
just talking on that point of the global South, Argentina is a country worldwide known because of the recognition and respect for human rights of LGBTIQ individuals. Since the approval of the gender identity and the equal marriage bill back in 2012 and 2010, there have been a lot of progress made. But at the same point, we have one of the most progressive migration laws in the region as well. So although the pandemic made us have our borders closed for almost 180 days, borders just reopened on November 1st. And we need to start communicating more to make also our country that has a lot of challenges. I mean, I can say that Argentina is not perfect. We have a lot of challenges in terms of economy and to find a job, but there's willingness to help. And the framework, the legal framework of the country makes it easier for people to be able to migrate and seek refuge just because of being LGBTIQ. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariano. So, Mariano, as an ally, as an LGBT ally, is there, and we always need to find not always a solution that we imagine is the solution. Right now, we're seeing how borders in the US and in Europe are closing and getting more difficult for other people from the global South to come in. Sometimes solutions can be in the global South. And it might not be a final solution, but it might be at least a solution that, in a way, provides some dignity and respect for, our community. Now, Darlan, I'm aware that you've been done incredible work by building a community in a very conservative country. As an apostle and as a community leader, all of that, despite you being openly intersex and using the power of faith, you managed to change society, particularly in that environment that often persecutes intersex people or sees them as a taboo. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the Bride of the Lamb congregation in Kenya, and how can faith-based communities in Africa provide that type of support you provide, particularly in Kenya, a country that we know there has the largest LGBTQI refugee camp, which is Kakuma. How can we, find a way in which we can connect you and intersex people experiencing these challenges that we discussed today? How can we work as a collective and assist intersex people, orphans, people experiencing disabilities, reflecting on the very important work that you're currently doing there? You need to unmute yourself. We need to unmute yourself.
Unmute.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Alian. I am very much glad and excited to be invited in this wonderful platform. In fact, I feel very, very privileged and special to get this chance. To all intersex entirely, I've had many of them talking very nice. Hello?
Yes, we hear you. I think the connection is a little bit unstable.
It's okay, it's okay. So I'm very
Oh, it's a shame. Digital divide.
much glad
I tell you.
to be found.
Yeah, the connection is not helping us today. Let's bring some energy, intersexy energy. Okay, I think it's better now, Darren. You can give it a try. Yeah, this is the digital divide you were living on. It's a reality.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think it's better now, Darren.
Let me zoom.
Yes, we can hear you, but it is a little bit cut.
Yes, sorry, I'm just correcting it.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
You can hear me, but you can't see me.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine, my dear, just to ensure we can have a good connection.
Thank you, thank you. Do you see me now?
Yes.
It's okay. So, thanks to God who has given us this opportunity. Oh, as an apostle and as an intersex, I have experienced a lot of problems affecting the intersex people in Kenya, mostly in Kenya, because I mostly live here in Kenya. But the first thing I have experienced is that it is just a repetition, because I have had many of us have spoken about discriminations, how people are being discriminated, even me since I was born. I'm not a child now. I have gone through a lot. For me to be to reach at this stage, it is just the grace of God, because it is through discriminations, hatred, and being molested, and many more. And even right now, people are just pretending to be it's like they are pretending to have accepted the being of in intersex community, but it is not yet, because I have had a special comment, a special word from one of us have spoken just right now, that when we want to go to another country, that is the migration. So we used to be questioned and to be given a lot of questions because we lack the identity. So the thing which should be done, which we should fight for, is the identity. We need to be identified, to have the identity directly, not to be questioned, many questions, and a lot of harassment. So we should be given identity according to who we are, because we are not men, we are not women, we are intersex, and that is how we found ourselves. It is natural. We didn't create ourselves. It is God who made it. We just found ourselves. If it is not even God, we can just say we just found ourselves that way, in that manner, in that way. So we must be accepted in that way. So according to me, I have experienced a lot since my childhood. I have many people have tried to kill me. Even right now, I have seen a lot of threats. People are saying, "Oh, you know, Apostle, it's you who is trying to promote what is a taboo amongst our community. Now we can even kill you." But to me, I'm seeing that if the intersex can come together, just as what you have done to us, you have invited us to be together. We can advise, we can get different experience from different people in the world, so that we might get a strong solution. So the first thing I would wish to to have as an intersex, my advice is that we should establish the intersex, or first of all, the displaced intersex, because in the world, I know we have the displaced intersex. So what we should do to these people is to find a way on how we can establish them. And that is what I have done even here in Kenya. That's why I have made many homes, just like homes for people who are disparate, the vulnerable, those are the intersex, for them to have a conducive place to stay. So what we should do is to find a way as a community to establish all these intersects, for them to be very, very stable wherever they are. They should not be just moving around, being treated not well that way. So that is the first point. The second point is to put more effort in creating awareness. This is the big help we can do, creating awareness. We must, as the community, we must create or find a way of creating or elevating awareness, creating awareness about the intersex, because people are just discriminating us because they don't know. Some of people doesn't know even the being of intersex. So if you say I am an intersex, they just are ignorant because they don't know. So for them to know is only if they are told. This is why we must sit down as a community, as intersex. We must find a way on how to create awareness worldly, everywhere, all over the world, so that this intersex should also be known entirely in the world, that there is existence of intersex. So we must teach them so that they may know, creating awareness. The third is to taking a staunch action of law against people forcibly displacing the intersex and mistreating them. We should sit down and find a way on how to approach the government where intersex lives. And we must see on how to take a staunch action against the people who are disrespecting or displacing the intersex. Because with law, I know everything can be successful if we can go and approach the governments and we ask them why they are doing this. And I think that even some laws which are just oppressing the intersex can be removed. And that is the only way we can help the intersex in the society. If we can get a way to reach the government, and if they can help us react, because as we don't have any weapon, there is no way we can tame these people, but the government is a weapon. They have many ways on how to tame these people who are oppressing the intersex. And to those people who are under persecutions, I also have a word, the people who are under persecutions, because there are some people who are being persecuted because of that. We should just go to those places where people are being persecuted and create awareness. That is the first thing. Creating awareness will make these people to accept who they are, for them not to live in fear. We want these people to walk freely. So we must go direct to these people, to the area these people are. And we create awareness and we establish them to drive away fear, because I don't think running away from problems can solve them. We can't run away from our problems. We must just find a way to solve them wherever we are. So the first thing we should do is to create awareness wherever they are, and we establish them. Again, second to that, to those people who are being persecuted, we should be helping them, the affected intersex. Yes, we must give them a way on how they can live, because we must support them. That is why I have been doing that. Personally, I don't have anybody giving me support, but through my singing industry and through my my businesses, I'm just giving support by myself, because as an intersex, I have lived self-dependent, that I don't depend on others. So because me, as an adult or as a mature person, I can survive in that hostile situation, but there are still young ones, young children who are still being brought up. So we must find a way on how to support these children, to support the youths, to support the old people, old intersex. I'm talking about intersex, giving support to them materially, so that they may be established wherever they are. Because if a person is being persecuted, nobody can help him. Nobody can, a persecutor cannot help a person whom he persecutes. So it is us to come in and to give support to them. Thirdly, it's just making a way on how to teach our the community of intersex on how to depend on themselves, because nobody can accept you before you accept yourself. It is me to accept who I am. I am an intersex. I was born that way, and I must accept that I am an intersex, and it is good. That's why I sang that song saying, I am very much comfortable the way I am, because I have accepted who I am. So we must teach all the intersex to accept who they are. It is not strange, it is not unique, it is just natural, just like a man or a woman. We must accept who we are. So this is what I'm trying to advocate to the community of intersex, that when we have gotten a very wonderful platform like this, I say thank you for this, such a wonderful invitation. I have gotten to this platform, and I'm very much happy and grateful to be found here. And today I've been much elevated from my intersex fellows. They have spoken well. I'm very much happy to meet you in this platform. I love you so much. I'm very much encouraged that we should move on to change the world. We must tell people that the intersex are also just human beings like men outside there and women. Out of that, to other people, what I can say is that what is important is that whatever thing we are doing, which brings impact, that is the thing which is important. We must do something which brings impact, no matter who we are, because we know there are men, there are women, there are intersex, but being a woman, being a man, being an intersex without doing anything which brings an impact is useless. So we should find a way of doing things which brings impact to the society. And this is what I'm trying to work hard on here in Kenya. And you've talked about a refugee camp in Kakuma.
Kakuma.
Yes, in Kakuma. I've never visited that place, but because I've been very much busy with other people taking care of I have many people. I have a lot of people, over 1,000 in my home. I'm taking care of intersex and many other vulnerable people, not only intersex alone, even the gays. I have some of them who have been rejected with the community, and they have come to seek refuge where I am, because I am known here that I am a person who has a heart of acceptance. I live in humility. I love people. I love nature. So I will visit Kakuma. If you can give me a proper connection and direction on how I can represent you there, I can do it heartedly. And I would be very much glad and happy to meet people, because I know that there must be some people suffering there, and they are also intersex. So if I go there, I can find a way on how we can handle their situations. Thank you, Helene.
Yeah. Thank you so much, my darling. And Mariano, just to let you know, I had the opportunity of visiting virtually Darlan's project, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. It's sustainable. It's a beautiful place where they grow vegetables, where they have schools, where they have, you know, they created a whole community of love. And we know the situation in Kakuma is very terrible. You know, it's a situation that, you know, it's really, really heartbreaking to see what's happening in Kakuma, one of the worst refugee places in the entire planet. It's just where Darlan is doing such an amazing work. So, you know, we just have to intersect and connect with each other and find maybe solutions, not solutions, or not all solutions are in the global north. Some solutions can be in our global south, as Mariano has said, and as Darlan just exposed, because Darlan has created a fantastic community. I had the opportunity to visit, and it's just amazing. I think solutions are there, and they are not always that obvious, okay? So I just want to thank you, Mariano, Reese, thank you so much for your time. Luan, I know you have another meeting. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much, Darlan, for your amazing intersexy energy. We needed that energy today. Thank you so much for your songs, and thank you so much for being present today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, now without further ado, I'm just gonna have some closing remarks by Tony Brifa, who's the chair of Intersex Steering Committee at ILGA World. Tony has been publicly intersex human rights advocate for more than 25 years and is the current chair of ILGA's World Intersex Committee. Tony is the president of the Peer Support Australia, vice chair and former co-executive director of Intersex Human Rights Australia, and as a co-chair of the Victorian Government Intersex Expert Advisory Group. Tony is also the first out intersex person elected to public office, a current fourth term elected by city councillor, a former mayor, a justice of peace, and former bail of justice and foster parent. So we're gonna have some closing remarks by Tony Brifa. Thank you. Just gonna put, yeah.
Hello, I'm Tony Brifa, the chair of ILGA World's Intersex Committee and intersex person. Very proud intersex person at that. I acknowledge and stand in solidarity with the other many intersex people around the world and commemorate intersex people who are no longer with us. I thank all the speakers who presented today and ILGA World for always being such a genuine ally for intersex people and our human rights movement. I wish we had many, many more allies like ILGA World. It is important as a movement that we recognise the many different intersectionalities that exist in our community. Intersex people are much more than just intersex, and we are extremely diverse, but we all need to be included in our movement. Intersex people can be migrants, can be asylum seekers, refugees, people of colour, queer, trans, young or old. We can have different faiths, can experience any type of disadvantage, and we can have a disability or a number of disabilities. All these lived experiences and intersectionalities are important. We must ensure all voices are included in our work. I appreciate the speakers tonight for their words and for sharing their work and lived experiences with us. We still have much to do as a community, but let's make sure that as we move out of this pandemic and the challenges of recent years, that we are especially kind, considerate, and inclusive in all the work that we do. Thank you.
All right, I just want to thank you for this opportunity of being here with us today. It is a pleasure for me to be able to with the assistance of civil society and the multiple speakers to have this opportunity of make this event very special and very unique, with intersecting elements of our identities that probably were not discussed in this nature. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to bring people from all over the world and to be here together. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And I want to say thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, which is for me, is like almost 4 a.m. in the morning, but it is what it is. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we had this opportunity of being together this night. Thank you so much, and have intersexy hugs and love from me and from everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.